you are living in a computer simulation. At least this is what the simulation theory says. This theory postulates that sometimes in the future there will be a civilization that has enough computing power to create a virtual reality that is as sophisticated as the reality we're living in right now. And also this theory says that in the computer there can be created characters that have independent feelings, independent thoughts. And if that is so, then why not we are living right now in such a simulation? The possibilities will be quite high. The probability will be quite high. And in that case, whatever we experience in this world, all the objects we see, our own body, our own self, our personality, is just a result of sophisticated coding and is not real. So this simulation theory is not it's not something new. This is there in humanity. This idea is since thousands of years. And what the Vedic teachings say about simulation theory, this are we going to discuss in this video. The Greek philosopher Platon, he had a similar idea already. In his cave allegory, he says that we are like captured in a cave and forced to look on a wall. And the only thing we see on this wall is our own shadow and the shadow of different objects. And since we have no other experience than only these shadows, we're living like, so to say, in a simulation of these shadows. We are not living in the reality of the real objects, of the real self, but we're living in this shadow reality. But however, the Greeks, they were not the first with such a simulation theory. Platon must have borrowed much of his philosophy from the Vedic teachings and the Sanskrit literatures of ancient India. And so what does Vedic teachings say about the simulation theory? So the Vedas, they agree and disagree with the modern version of the simulation theory. So they disagree mainly because like the properties of life, independent thinking, independent feelings and independent actions, they cannot be created by matter. In the Vedic teachings, there is a clear distinction between matter and spirit. Spirit is life, it has independence, it has individuality, it has a personality, and matter has no independence. It is dull, and it is always induced by spirit to move and act on all levels. So therefore, modern science rather tends to accept only gross matter as reality and tries to explain everything from this, and even tries to explain life from that. And they're going to the extent to say that life is just a complicated combination of chemicals, or in this case, a complicated computer code. But the Vedas do not agree with that. And there is much more to life than just the functions of the brain and the functions of the mind and the functions of the body. And whoever has the slightest spiritual experience can definitely verify that. So, in my opinion, or also the opinion of the Vedas, it is the great intellectual poverty of the modern science to not go beyond the empiric and not go beyond the gross elements. And if you not agree to that, I think this Vedic spirituality channel is not the right channel for you. However, let's discuss in which sense the Vedic teachings agree with the modern simulation theory. So, if we are talking about a virtual reality, there must be also the real reality behind it. So let's look at the movie The Matrix. In The Matrix, there is the real reality where the humans, they're fighting against the machines, And then there is the virtual reality, which is created by the machines, and where all the captured human beings, they are locked in and captured in this mind prison, so to say, which this matrix computer program is. And the real existence of the people in the matrix is actually outside of the matrix. They're living in this battery cells, and they're just so much absorbed in thoughts within the matrix that they not realize the real existence, and they're just absorbed in their activities within the matrix. So this is actually a pretty nice allegory for the Vedic version as well. In the Vedic version, there is a spiritual sky, that is sexual reality, and that is the real home for all the awakened living entities. And then besides that, there is the material cosmos, and those who are living and have taken birth in this material cosmos, they forget their spiritual identity, and they're absorbed in their temporary identity provided by the material world. So, but let's look at the verse of the Bhagavad Gita and see what the Vedic scriptures they say. 27th verse in the 3rd chapter. Prakrite kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvashaha ahankara vimudhatma kartaham iti manyate. The translation is, the spirit soul, bewildered by the influence of false ego, thinks himself the doer of activities that are in actuality carried out by the three modes of material nature. So here it is said that we are thinking that we are the doers, that I'm speaking right now, I'm moving my hands and whatnot, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. But to think that is actually a kind of an illusion, because all activities in this world, they are carried out by the three modes. So there's a beautiful illustration to make this a little bit more clear. There's a illustration to describe our human experience. There is the example given of a chariot and charioteer and passenger. So the chariot is pulled by horses, and the horses, they symbolize our senses, the body, the tools of the body, the senses, and the rein, which controls the horses, is the mind, and the intelligence, that is the deliberation power of the mind, is the driver. And then we ourselves, the living entity, we are the passenger. So we are just there and witnessing actually where the driver is going. We can give suggestions. I would like to go there. I would like to go here. So we have free will. We have the ability to desire and to direct. But actually, all the actions are done by the driver, by the rein, by the horses, and they move. And all these different, the driver, the horses, and the rein, they're all provided by the material energy. And the material energy actually does everything, and we are just sitting there witnessing and desiring to do this and do that. So this is the illustration given. This is what this verse of the Bhagavad Gita says, that all the actions of the chariot, they are carried out by the matrix of the material world, and we are actually not the doer. So it's similar like in the Matrix, the movie, the real self is just within this battery box, and it's just dreaming. It's just witnessing all these things. Of course, it has its free will within the matrix, but all the activities done in the reality of the matrix is done by the matrix. It's not done by the living entity itself. He is just witnessing and directing by its desires and wishes. So now let's get into the metaphysics. So the matrix, in the matrix, this is a computer program, And a computer is coded with a digital code. So there is zeros and there's one. Zero means there is no electric impulse, and one means there's electric impulse. So with this code, zeros and one, the whole reality, matrix reality in a computer is created. So everything can be actually reduced to zeros and ones, to this binary code, to the digital code. So what the Vedas say? The Vedas say, in this verse, the Bhagavad Gita says that the gunas, gunai karmani sarvashaha, everything, all the karma, sarva, all sarvashaha, all the karma, all the activities are done by the gunas, and gunas means modes. So there is so much that can be said about these modes of material nature, but for now we can just think of them as the three basic energies by which this world is coded. So if we are talking of energies, then we always have to also talk about the source of the energy, because an energy is not sustained within itself. There's always a source to it, and the source of these three energies is the Supreme Lord, is God. In Sanskrit, the Sanskrit name for God is Krishna, this all attractive, all blissful original person. And these three basic energies of material nature are his energies. He manifests them for the purpose of the material creation. And then all the material elements and whatever we experience in this world are coming into existence due to the interactions of these three basic energies. So this is, so to say, the most basic elements of the material of matter. And modern science, they are trying hard to find smaller and smaller particles. They went to the atom, from the atoms they went to the neutron and electrons and quarks and whatever is there. But they can never come to the conclusion of these three modes of material nature, because they are far beyond of any measurement of gross instruments, because they are the cause of the gross instruments, and you cannot, with something more gross, you cannot perceive something more subtle. Like, let's say sound is more subtle than form. So the eyes, they are meant to perceive form, but they cannot perceive sound. Sound is more subtle. So therefore, modern science, they are always condemned to stay on the lower level of knowledge, because they don't have access to the spiritual knowledge. So back to our simulation theory. So Bhagavad Gita says that this material world is coded by these three modes of material natures, as a computer program is coded with zeros and ones. So, but the question now arises is, why do we live in the simulation and not in the reality? So the reason for this is because we have lost the ability to act on the soul platform. Our desires and our actions are no more congruent with the spiritual nature of the self. The quality of the soul is love. So, and love is always unconditional. Love always gives and never takes. And that we have the ability to do that, we have lost. The love we are having in this material world is not unconditional anymore. There's always a condition to it. If you not love me back, I will not love you. If you not behave like this and then that, I will not love you. So this is not the love on the soul platform. It is a love on the material platform. And therefore, we have lost the qualification to live in the pure spiritual level. But since God is very merciful, He has created this material world and has given us the chance to live and learn in the material atmosphere. So according to the lessons we have to learn according to the things we have to experience, and also according to the results of our actions we have done, we are going through different experiences and are put into different conditions of life. And there's a beautiful poem that describes that. Kabu Raja, Kabu Raja, Kabu Vidra Sudra, Kabu Duki, Kabu Suki, Kabu Kita Sudro, Kabu Swarge, Kabu Marte, Narakeva, Kabu, Kabu Deva, Kabu Daitya, Kabu Dasa. So it says the Jiva, the living being, that's the Sanskrit word for the living beings, goes through many births, sometimes being born as a king, sometimes as an ordinary citizen, sometimes as a learned spiritualist, and sometimes as a common man. Sometimes he's suffering, and sometimes he's happy. And sometimes he's born as an insect. Sometimes he goes to heaven, sometimes he comes down to earth again, or maybe he's bound to go to hell. So sometimes he's born as a deva, as a god, and sometimes as a demon, and sometimes as the master, and sometimes as the servant. So, but all this is very philosophical, and it seems highly theoretical. So is there any practical value in it, to this simulation theory? Or can we actually experience or verify it for ourselves? So I believe that any sensitive human being can actually feel it. And also, and many spiritually inclined persons, they say that they have a feeling of not belonging to here, or something is strange, or life doesn't seem real. And also if we see that people who are very successful, financially very successful, though they have all the money they could ever wish for, and they could buy whatever they would like, but still they're not satisfied, and they're still going on and still going on. And there's always a dissatisfaction. So since actually our body and our mind is just given to us, temporarily given to us by the material nature, and our self actually has an identity behind that, an eternal identity behind that. That means that whatever we do with the body and mind can never actually satisfy ourselves, because it is external. It is external. It's not inside of us, and this can be seen all over the place. Now, people, they are not satisfied. Even those who seem to be super satisfied in the media, if you see the personal stories, they have so much suffering in their life and so much dissatisfaction. There might be highly successful Hollywood actors, but their personal life is a complete mess. Their relationships are a complete mess, and they're not getting satisfied. So there is no satisfaction in the material world, and I think that is the point. We can really believe that what the Vedas say is true, that this is not our real self, and we cannot get real satisfaction through the experiences of this fake self. So I believe that anyone really listening to his heart, really listening to his intuition, he will realize that this is not, something is wrong. There must be more to life than just what we experience with our gross senses and our mind. And there must be a real self beyond our karmic ego. So let's go back to the example of the Matrix. So this character Neo, in his life inside the Matrix as a Mr. Anderson, he was a hacker, and he was so to say, such a sensitive human being who could feel something is wrong here. What is the matrix? And he could not understand yet the scope of his suspicion that something is wrong. But that made him actually receptive for the message of Morpheus, who came and then explained to him that this world is wrong. This world is just an illusion. And your real self is behind it, and you have a purpose there to fulfill. So this again is a beautiful allegory for the Vedic version as well. And this poem from before, it continues like this. While transmigrating from birth to birth in this material world, if by chance the living entity comes into contact with a saintly person, he immediately becomes aware of his true identity as a pure spiritual soul, the eternal servant of Krishna. So, in conclusion, I would like to say that this simulation theory had intrigued many minds through the ages, and many resonate with it, and rightfully resonate with it. And the ancient Vedic wisdom or sages may not agree that we are living in a computer simulation, but they could well describe our reality as a simulation run by a supreme consciousness. So I will continue this series with, about simulation theory. I have another 3 videos to this topic. The next video will be about looking further into the mechanics of the material creation and how it is arranged by God. So keep tuned, please subscribe, like, and comment, and see you next time.
Let me tell you why you're here. You're here because you know something. What you know you can't explain, but you feel it. You felt it your entire life. The Matrix. Do you want to know what it is? This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. Remember, all I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
सर्ववेदेभ्यः सारं 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 समुद्रम्